Like we have been so conditioned to judge ourselves. We've been so conditioned to judge our anger, to judge our sadness, to judge our fear. What we are not yet fully aware of, though, is that the intensity with which these emotions are arising are not solely ours, okay? So the fact that there's so much anger coming up and so much fear and so much sadness points to a generational component to these energies, to these emotions, to these ways of being. So the first thing that I want to say to all of you is that you don't have to pretend to be anybody other than yourself here. I'm not going to stop loving you because you're angry. I'm not going to turn my back on you because you're sad. I'm not going to abandon you because you're scared. It's important to recognize that every single aspect of you is welcome here. Because what I've discovered actually is that these parts of us don't go away. Our relationship with them evolves over time. So for example, in time, as you stop personalizing your anger, you simply experience it, you feel it, you don't make it about anyone outside of you, and then it's over. And that's the same thing with our sadness, and that's the same thing with our fear. At some point, we have to get to a point where we step into the acceptance of how we're feeling and what we're going through. Because the judgment that we have imposed on ourselves is the root cause of why these emotions become compressed and dense and heavy within us. So I would like to support us all today in stepping into the acceptance of that which we have been conditioned and programmed to judge about ourselves. And I'm going to give you an overarching macro thesis as to why it is that way. And then I want to also bring it into more of an individual level to help you understand why you are operating within the bounds of that conditioning. On a macro global level, the reason why certain emotions have been judged or deemed socially unacceptable is because they are a threat to the status quo. Your anger is a threat to the status quo. Your anger. And so in that, anger has been judged and made wrong. There's no room for anger in our society. There's no room for that expression. Anger, as defined by the status quo, is a dangerous emotion because it is an emotion that leads to the overhauling of what we have accepted as the norm. Typically, it takes a human being to get angry enough about something before it transforms. Case in point, apartheid, racism, separation, segregation. We have to begin to realize that there is a place for our anger and that it doesn't make us bad as individuals or people. There is a place for our anger. The reason why we have had such a hard time with this emotion is because it's only ever been modeled in a way that's unconscious. Meaning that there's been this build-up of anger within us to a point where we can no longer contain it within our bodies, no longer contain it within our psyche, no longer contain it within this self-image, and then it overflows. And typically it's directed towards somebody. And then all of a sudden, in the directing it towards somebody, the feelings that ensue the eruption of that emotion are guilt and shame. You feel bad about the fact that you were angry. It's important to recognize that you are not bad and you are not wrong. It's important to recognize that you are just a human being. And that at some point we have to have the courage to shake off these conditioning frameworks, these conditioned frameworks around emotion, because they're not serving us.